Okay, are we ready? Does everybody out there hear me? Say yes.
Yeah.
Oh. well,
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me, Sam. Okay. I can't see, that's us on the other thing. You may be the only person that's our guest tonight.
We have more on our.
Who do we have? I'm just
I
curious.
thought people would be swarming to this topic.
Yeah, so do I. However, they're not. But
Eileen is here.
we have a couple of guests. I don't know what I did with my pen. Oh,
Here, you've got a few.
Oh, you took my pen. Can I please have it back on you? Because I need it as an extra. Okay? You hear me, Lois? Lois?
Well, I'm sorry, I was just looking at one of my phrases.
When, hurry up and do what you're doing and
What?
get another pen, because that one I'm using as my backup.
No, this is mine,
Oh, that's yours.
but you can have this one.
Oh, okay.
If it works, I have other in my pocketbook.
Excellent. All right. You're hearing us all tattle away, and it's getting past 6:30, so I'm going to get started. And I will say good evening and welcome to Community Board 2's Traffic and Transportation Committee. I am Shirley Secunda, the chair, and we have some members I'd like to introduce you to. You want to start?
Oh, I'm Lois Rakoff.
Right?
I'm Daniel Miller.
Joe Hagan, public member. Okay, and there may be a few others straggling along, but we do have a kind of full agenda tonight, all related to each other for different items. And I'm just going to take you through, although I think most of you are aware. Oh, can somebody open the door to let Jason? That we do have a certain procedure. I believe that it is on the screen. Deb, can you get it onto the screen? Okay, that's our protocol. Oh, hi, here's Roy from Assemblymember Roy Simon over there. And then, okay, yeah, good ideas. Excellent, thank you. Okay, the protocol procedure. 4 items on the agenda, each one heard separately. First, the committee asks questions, then our guests ask questions and also give us comments. Then, once each of these is done, we move into our business session. And in the business session, the committee talks and deliberates as to whether we should do a resolution about these items or how we should handle them. And everybody's invited to stay and listen to what we have to say, but at that point, public doesn't participate. Okay, if you look at the meeting protocol, and I will just go through a few of the pointers, and again, I think most of you are aware at this point what our rules are. Okay, we give everybody, all our guests, at least 2 minutes. That's not you, Sam. Sam, you're the presenter. But any of the public that wants to comment, ask questions, etc., is allowed 2 minutes. Sometimes we have a little time, they can ask again, but really be prepared to get all you want to say and ask into the 2-minute framework, so that in case there isn't time, then you will get to say all that you want. I think most of you are also aware this is a little hand symbol. At the bottom of the screen, just hit that if you want to raise your hand and we'll call on you. Our vice chair is really being the host. He's the host tonight. So he will really be timing you as well as getting you on screen and unmuting you. Otherwise, we will keep you muted if we want to kind of keep it quiet. Can you sign in?
How are you?
Oh, hi there. How are you? How are you? Sign in if you want. Sure. There's a thing. Oh, right, you can sign in there. Just write the name. One of our other board members, not a transportation member, but a board member, Rocio Sands, just came in.
Oh, Marcia.
And let's see.
Only
Like,
20 years of
I covered everything, Lois. I told you the 2 minutes. Be sure that you have all your minutes, use your hand symbol. And once take comments and questions, and we'll do our business session. Oh, and of course, final is not here tonight. That is at our full board meeting, which is on Thursday, November 16th. So if you want to do further comment, please do come to the board meeting. Hi there, Laura Tenenbaum. And when you come to the full board meeting, that is the time when all the committees will vote on whatever our resolutions are, and the final decisions will be made. And without further ado, but I think I've talked too long anyhow, so excuse me, I am going to go right.
You just want to remind them if they do come to our 16th meeting and they want to speak, they have to email the board office before 5 p.m. on the night of the meeting. You can't just show up and speak, okay?
Yeah, so please do sign in if you want to speak, but that's in person, Amy, and online, right? Both, okay. So onward, and I see that Sam Vasquez is here from Senator Hoylman-Sigal's office, and he is going to take us through 4 different bills tonight that Senator Hoylman-Sigal has introduced. So it's yours, Sam. Unmute yourself or unmute Sam, and we're on.
Hello. Thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting us to talk about our bills. So I guess I'll just go through each bill and then pause for questions. I'll just do a brief overview and then let folks ask me any questions before moving on to the next bill. I'll start with the first one here on the first bullet, Senate Bill 7587, which, I was asked to give a little background on each bill. So I'll say, this bill is meant to create a registration system for commercial delivery workers to register their e-bikes and other vehicles. And the thinking behind this bill was that we've been hearing from a lot of constituents that there are some unsafe conditions caused by e-bike riders on delivery. Sometimes folks are on the sidewalk, sometimes folks are maybe going the wrong way or running a red light. And so we know that this is a complex issue, and there's many different causes and that contribute to these conditions. So we thought that this would be one step in the direction of having some accountability and also trying to address some of the underlying issues. We know that, for example, the delivery platforms, the apps, have very strict guidelines for how many deliveries these workers have to do, which puts a lot of pressure on the delivery workers to go fast in order to make a living. And we talked with the delivery workers about this bill to get their insight into it. And they let us know that if you don't agree to if the app asks you if you're willing to go up to 10 miles or further for a delivery, and if you don't agree to that, you get pinged and you might not get any more work for the day, or you might get knocked off the app entirely if you don't if you're not productive enough and hit enough deliveries per hour. You might also get negative consequences. So they're under a lot of pressure. We want to have a balanced approach. So there's some I guess protections that we try to implement here to try to place the burden onto the apps and the delivery platforms that are making a lot of money from this business. So for example, we made it so any fines for violations that a delivery worker incurs while working will be given to the delivery app that the worker was working for at the given moment. So any fines that are incurred, will not be paid by the worker. It'll be paid by the delivery app. We're hoping that would hopefully help address, send an incentive to the apps to hopefully address how their business model works, and hopefully help ensure that they are not incentivizing dangerous behavior and incentivizing the delivery workers to do irresponsible or illegal things. So that is the first bill. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay,
Now-
so, Daniel.
Yeah, sure. I think it's terrific that you're addressing this issue. It's certainly an issue in the city. But it seems like you put some safeguards to protect migrant unregistered workers, but how do you think it's going to affect a lot of these migrants who don't have any other options for work outside of delivery? How will it impact them, in other words?
Yeah, that's something, we don't want to have like unintended consequences. And this is one approach that we're considering. We have heard from people, including the delivery workers, their organization, the Deliveristas. We reached out to them to get their feedback, and they definitely had some concerns. They had some constructive feedback. We incorporated, we're in the process of working with them to make some amendments, but they do have some concerns that should someone, this might just be another reason for an app to push someone off of their platform and take away their ability to work on their platform, which is something that we don't want. And we're trying, we're actually trying to address some of those concerns by, trying to change how the business model is. But, we definitely hear that those are, that there are concerns in that regard. We've been working with the delivery workers, and for example, we're working to amend the bill so that any initial violations, instead of financial fines, would be educational. Require classes on require classes for what all the rules are, rules of the road. A lot of folks are new to the city, don't know the rules of the road. So, we're trying to make amendments to address some of those concerns. And we're happy to hear any feedback or suggestions that you may have.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, it seems as though kind of like a waiter, you're going to be making less money as a delivery worker because you're not going to be able to deliver as many things in a certain amount of time. And this is going to limit the amount of deliveries you can make?
No.
No?
The bill, so the bill is unrelated to pay. The bill says that you must have a license plate. Basically, we're creating the system for a license plate for commercial e-bikes. There
And those
are
licenses are towards the individual owner of the bike, or is it back towards the app that they're delivering for?
it's under their name, but
Whose name?
The migrant workers.
drivers, they're not all migrants, but you're right that a lot of them are. And it will be under the name of the driver, the delivery worker. However, we're able to see who they're working for at a given moment based on the app data. And so what I was saying about, not going fast or something is, there's already rules of the road that are already in place. And, this is just supposed to be another tool to help ensure that we have some accountability on the road, and while also trying to take an approach that would hopefully not put that burden on the worker and put the burden on the app platforms that are creating these incentives and dangerous conditions. So that's the idea. We've heard from different folks that there are some concerns about how it might have unintended consequences, and we'd love to continue those conversations and hear any suggestions about this or possibly other approaches to addressing the solution. This is an issue that we hear a lot about. So I think, even if I think if you're a pro worker, if you're pro bike lane, bikes, if you're pro safety, street safety, I think, something needs to happen, because we're seeing, more and more people are on bikes, and I personally think that's a good thing. But I think for that to continue, I think there needs to be some kind of shift where people are following the rules of the road and people are safe, and that's not just for the safety of others and pedestrians, but for the safety of the delivery workers themselves. Because unfortunately, we've seen a lot of delivery workers have been injured and even killed due to unsafe conditions. They're forced to go and ride in unsafe ways, and it leads to unfortunate situations and sometimes even death. So I think this is one of the main solutions that we're considering, but there are other ways to look at this issue. But this is we'd love to hear your thoughts, and we can continue the conversation on it.
Well, we've got Rosie.
Committee members first.
What?
Committee members first.
Committee members first, and committee members only ask questions.
Right.
We discussed during business session. So there are the rules, okay?
May I ask my question?
I don't think I'll. Question, Rosie?
Do you want to do it that way? It's not your protocol. Your protocol is committee members. Then, yeah.
Committee members ask questions. Yes.
You're on the committee?
Always people out.
I am so sorry.
Yes. Are you? a committee member?
I am supposed to be on the committee.
No, I'm told that you're not on the committee, but please.
No, I was told that I was supposed to be on this committee.
Perfect.
Okay?
No, you're not, okay? You better check.
I could just leave now if you
Oh,
want.
please ask her question.
I'll show you the email that she sent me. Thank you.
So we.
Anyway, here's my question. Speaking of accountability, why is he concentrating on commercial purposes only when there are concerns about others who are not engaged in commercial purposes also violate the laws and causing unsafe conditions on the road? Many people drive e-bikes, whether they're delivery people or not, and they do not abide by the rules. Why is he concentrating only on commercial purposes? Should he expand this to the rest of the world?
That's for me.
I don't think that's really what. I don't.
Sorry, Sam, you have the floor. Can you have?
I have the floor. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure as the other people were speaking. So your question is whether other non-commercial e-bikes should be included? Well,
Non-commercial uses included.
yes. No, that's that's not a bad idea. We're focused with this bill on commercial uses. We've seen how many trips are by delivery workers, and it makes up a large number of all trips. So that's what we're focused on at the time. But I do hear you. I can see where you're coming from, but this is what we're focused on for this particular bill. It doesn't mean that there can't be other bills, but this bill is for commercial purposes.
Right, okay, thank you. Okay, so Lois.
And we could discuss that in our.
Right,
Okay,
right.
so hi, Sam.
You'll-
I want to go to some very basic kind of explanations or definitions. Could you explain what you consider a platform?
So it's any of the app-based delivery platforms. So that, that includes DoorDash, that includes Uber Eats, there's a large number of them. But any system through which you can order food through a third party system to have food delivered from restaurants, app-based delivery systems.
Okay, so clarifying the difference between registration and licensing. Does the driver need to get the license? I could understand about registration, like the fleet. Maybe like in respect to taxis there's independent taxi medallion owners, and there are fleet taxi medallion owners. So could you explain, talk about the registration?
Yeah.
And then we'll go to who gets the license.
Okay, so in this case, we're talking about a license plate. And so the delivery worker, that's one of the things that makes these platforms different. It's the workers are technically not employees. They are independent contractors. That's at the core of how these apps work. And because of that, they don't have a lot of the existing, worker protections and other things are not there, which is, a concern. But because of that, each delivery worker is an independent contractor. So yes, the worker, the individual would have to get the license plate, would have to register their vehicle with with the appropriate government office, and would get their license plate for their vehicle for their commercial use.
So there's no test, like when you get a driver's license, you need a test and then you get a license. But you're talking about a license plate, which
Yeah,
is a registration.
Yeah, so we're not talking about licenses with this. You don't need a license to drive a bike.
I'm gonna put that down. You need it.
Sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay.
this is about registering your vehicle and getting a license plate.
So the independent worker has to have his or her own license and registration plates to work for the third party or for the restaurant that is not a third party, but it's directly the restaurant does direct deliveries.
Platform.
The platform. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so the worker has to get their own license and license plate, register their vehicle in order to work for the third party apps.
Is there an age? Because
This-
is there an age to this? Because I know with a driver's license, you have to be 18. But with the electric bikes, is there an age? And I see younger people riding and delivering. So.
Yeah, so there are as with any type of employment, there are age requirements.
Yes.
But this bill does not change that.
This still doesn't exist.
Well, I have others, but go to other
Okay.
people.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it's still with the committee, and there are two people from the committee that, Amy, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a few, I did the bills, but it was a while ago, so I apologize if I'm asking some. So who's going to enforce these infractions? We said, right, how do we know who it is?
That's the other bill.
Huh?
That's the other bill about the hit and runs.
We're only.
Anyone want to say anything about one?
Sorry,
Either or.
I can't hear quite well.
That's okay, never mind.
Anybody else on this committee?
Follow up from what Lois was talking about. Do you happen to know, Sam, who owns the majority of commercial e-bikes? Is it individuals or is it organizations?
So because of the structure of these apps, like I was saying, the workers are not employed directly by these apps.
No, I'm talking about actually the physical bike.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm getting there. Because of that, the workers are responsible for all their equipment, which is, it makes things quite difficult for the worker and leads to other problems. So the workers own their own e-bikes.
Do they don't share them?
That's a good
Nope.
point.
There are companies now that are coming out that are offering leases, so you can get, because it's, these bikes are quite expensive. So there are other models coming out to help delivery workers access, a safe vehicle. But the vast majority of people have to buy their own e-bike.
Wow.
Which is why they're under one of the reasons why they're under so much pressure, because they're getting paid, a certain amount, and then, which is already, maybe not the best pay. And then they have to then pay for their e-bike, pay for their maintenance, pay for all the other things, all the overhead of, that it takes to be a delivery worker. So they're owned by the individuals primarily.
Anyone else in terms of questions? I thought it went right out. We are going to move on to the second bill on the agenda, which is '6760. And this one requires minimum insurance threshold for delivery companies.
Yes. So, one of the issues we've seen in a few.
I made a boo-boo. Yes. Yes, 70 questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then anybody online too. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Are that people here and people online? Could I ask a question?
It can't be heard with the movie it is.
Oh, totally cool. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
perfect.
good.
Hi, my name is Faik. I recently moved to New York. I'm a resident here of Community Board number 2. Just had a couple of questions regarding the enforceability of this bill. In particular, I'd be curious to learn more about how the distinction is going to be made between a commercial versus a non-commercial e-bike in a legal sense. And then the second question as pertains to enforceability is tying back to a question or a point that you made earlier. They're not direct employees of these companies, right? They're independent contractors or whatever lingo you want to use. I'm not sure there's precedent to hold the delivery platforms responsible for any fines. Like, to my knowledge, at least in New York State, we don't do the same thing for, like, if an Uber driver was to commit a driving violation. So curious to hear your perspective on whether this can remain legal once it's actually enacted.
Yes. So can you remind me the first part again?
Yeah, so the first part pertains to the first half of the Senate bill description, in particular, like the description about bikes used for commercial purposes. Was
Oh,
curious,
yes.
in the legal sense, how you differentiate between a commercial versus non-commercial bike.
Yeah. So someone who's using an e-bike for the purpose of delivering through a third-party app would be using for commercial purposes. That would be the distinction. And as to how that would be differentiated, when you're registering to work on one of these different apps, there's different requirements when you're logging in and becoming registering on the app to be an active worker. And it's similar to how when we decided that Airbnbs had to be registered with the city, in order to list, once that law passed, in order to list on Airbnb, you had to enter your registration number through the platform for Airbnb to let you list your apartment. In a similar way, in order to be active on the app, once if this is implemented, the workers would have to enter their data and their registration in order to be active on the app. So that would be how we would ensure that, one of the ways that we would ensure that people are using their registrations.
They're doing that now, right?
Sorry?
They are doing that now. The delivery workers are doing that now. They're registering, aren't they, or no?
Yeah, they have to register with the app in order to work with them. But if we pass this law, that could be part of the registration for the workers, that they would have to, prove that they've registered with the state. And this, as far as we've also heard concerns about how enforcement would work, increasing interactions with police and stuff of that nature. And I would say, we've seen in other spheres of police enforcement and traffic enforcement that camera enforcement has been quite successful and has limited interactions with police. However, a license plate is needed to enact that. So this is really would be a first step to bringing camera enforcement to these types of violations, and hopefully, ensuring that we don't have any conflicts between law enforcement. And then your second question was, sorry, can you remind me?
Yeah, for sure. And I also had a follow-up to that first point that you made, but regarding the holding the delivery platforms responsible for sidewalk violations, I'm not sure if that has any sort of precedent with the type of employment that's being used here. How do you think that this law could actually stand in the books if actually enacted?
Yeah, we think so. We're confident. There might be a challenge to it, but that's something we're happy to pursue.
Mind if I ask you a follow-up?
Yeah, can you, a couple people are asking what's your name is?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Mike. Recently moved to New York from DC, and very excited to be here. I live right in the border of Soho and Little Italy, so very excited to get involved in the community here to whatever extent I can.
Yeah, so let's do a follow-up question.
So the follow-up question was, as it pertains to your first point, how riders have to, or the deliveries does need to register on these apps. How do you plan to, enforce particular loopholes? In particular, one that I can think of is what's preventing someone from just registering their bike as a regular bike, even though they actually have an e-bike? Or in particular, maybe they do actually have a regular bike, but it's possible to actually mod a regular bike to become an e-bike. And that's an edge case that I don't think is covered under the original bill. So curious to hear your perspective on just, again, enforcement, but as it pertains to loopholes.
Yeah, that's a good question. We often work with different stakeholders on our legislation. We have talked to some of the apps about this. And so I guess we haven't really necessarily crossed that bridge yet, but I would say that we would work with them to try to implement a system that is least likely to be manipulated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Laura.
Now we've got Laura up there.
Where's
On the
Laura?
screen. Your turn, Laura. Somebody else here, right? Okay, you're
Are you
on.
ready? You ready for me?
We are ready.
Okay, and it's working. It's new computer, so I'm not sure if anything is really working right.
I mean, very clear.
Yeah. after 12 years, it's quite a change. I just had some simple questions about the legislation. In this one, in section 2, it basically says that that what I'm concerned about is that it's talking about the delivery of goods, and that while in the course of doing the business, which is delivering goods, there is some kind of a fine or violation that occurs. What about after the delivery's finished? I'm not sure that, if there's a loophole, there's a loophole. And I was just really concerned that if it doesn't say, that it's not only the delivery, but also after the delivery, while in the course of doing work for the people they're driving. Because if you're only focusing on the delivery, after the delivery,
Yeah,
the
so
goods are
I think,
gone, there's a problem.
so that is, to our previous questioner's point, the legality of this, of regulating these workers, given that they're independent contractors, is difficult. So we can't put the liability on the apps if the individuals are not working for them. So
Yeah, but at what point are they not working for them? For example, they get an order, go pick up at restaurant A and pick up at restaurant B and pick up at restaurant C, and then you're going to do all these deliveries. You'll do these deliveries, and then he's done them, and then he gets another order to pick up at restaurant whatever. He's not delivering yet. He's picking it up.
yeah, so pickup would be would count in this regard, and we're actually
Right.
looking at language to make sure that it also captures like a buffer between trips.
Right. Because I'm not
So
seeing that in the legislation as currently written.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, so pickup would my understanding is that pickup would currently be captured by the language we currently have, but we're also looking at other amendments to make sure that it also captures like a period of time after a delivery is made, to still any violations in that time period would still be included. So
And okay, thank you. And then my second question is there anything in there that prevents the third party delivery business, the owner, the employer, the person who hired them, from docking them pay should there be a violation?
yeah, so we did make it so the apps are not allowed to pass it along to the worker, but there are concerns about whether they would take it out on the worker in other ways. So we
Yeah.
are working with the deliveristas on
Yeah, I mean, my
Mhm.
concern is that particularly now as a senior citizen, I really want these guys to behave. I don't want them on my sidewalk. I don't want them coming from all different directions. I don't want them going so fast. I don't want to have to be hyper vigilant every time I step outside the door, which is what's happened now. And
Yep.
but at the same time, it has to be fair. And that's a hard balance for you guys to be doing.
Yep.
I think that there have to be consequences. If they're misbehaving, they're misbehaving, whatever their origins are, and their need, and there has to be some consequence. And I, in some ways, wonder, I understand that a large part of it is because they're being a great motivation for going so fast and going through the red lights and going on the sidewalk is that they are being pushed by the apps to do that because they have to do their deliveries. They're also being pushed by self-interest because they want to get as many deliveries in as possible because that's how they get paid. It's like piecework.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they themselves, when they're walking on the street, the rest of us, every pedestrian, every bicyclist, and even the car drivers, vehicle drivers are put at risk by the current behavior. And this is a step there, but I don't know whether it's stepped
Laura,
well
do you
enough.
have a question?
I wonder whether, and I'm going to finish up now, because it just
Minutes.
jumped in my mind, was whether at some point should a particular operator amass a great number of violations, perhaps there should be personal consequences as well.
That's something to consider. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
That the major thing, Laura, because obviously Senator Hoylman-Sigal's office is looking for suggestions. And would that be the major one that you would suggest? Is if a particular operator is amassing many violations?
Yeah. Yeah, we can.
Else?
We have
still-
Jeffrey's hand is up.
Yeah, I mean, Laura, is that it?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I put it on mute already. I muted myself. Yes, that was it. I couldn't hear you, Shirley. I can barely hear you.
Oh dear, what shall we do? Can you hear me
So-
now? Can you hear me now?
And my
When
new
you lean in,
computer is,
Shirley,
I
we can hear
think,
you.
at its loudest. Let me just double check.
Okay.
What?
Oh, no, it wasn't.
In the meantime, maybe Jeffrey?
It's on
Can I
me.
go ahead? I'm concerned about this legislation. I think it's excellent to license them. I don't understand why it seems that the codification is multi-layered and broken up with lots of holes in it. And I don't understand why we simply don't do what we do with all other motor vehicles, of any kind of motor vehicle. It doesn't matter if it's a dinghy for a boat. It's supposed to be licensed and insured. You can't own a car or drive a car or rent a car in New York City unless it's insured. You can't do that with a motorcycle or a moped. Why are not all e-bikes, including the ones
Jeffrey?
at City Bike?
It's the next
Yes.
Can I jump in, Jeffrey? If you look at the agenda, the next bill that we're going to discuss is about
Insurance.
insurance.
Okay.
So-
That would it apply then to all of the e-bikes, both city bikes as well as so that the tourist riding an e-bike would be also insured? Is that and licensed? Because this is a problem for me too. I'm with Laura on this. I
Jumping
don't
the gun
like
a
fact
bit,
that
but
I walk out the door and I do have to look both ways. I have a restaurant right near me that has bikes all the time coming on the sidewalk the wrong way. They go against the traffic on the bike lanes from Spring Street and Prince Street. They don't seem to pay any attention to the law. Unlike cars, if I saw a car driving up the wrong side of the street, you can bet a cop would be pulling them over. And that's a problem for me. So I'd like to know that how are we going to do the enforcement part of it?
so
Okay, well, we're gonna
asked a
move
lot
on.
of different questions there.
How about just enforcement? How do you plan to enforce it? What is the methodology to enforcement?
I mean, this bill is providing another tool for enforcement because all of the things that you've just complained about are already illegal, and the NYPD has decided it's not their business to enforce these already illegal behaviors. And so this is another tool. Someone says, don't blame the NYPD. Okay. Good feedback, Darlene. But so they've decided that they're not going to enforce these violations. And this is the situation we have. So I'm not advocating for additional a crackdown or anything like that, but there does need to be a rule of law. So I would say that this is just providing another tool for. Darlene's having fun in the chat there, but yeah. So I would say it's another tool for enforcement.
Okay.
But it seems to be limited only to the It seems to be limited
are-
only to the app.
Okay, you know.
Jeffrey,
Minutes.
it's gotta be a question that we all are on the same boat.
We're done. He can comment, but he's more than 2 minutes.
Could you
Go quickly, please. We have to move on.
Yes, please go back to what you consider, say again, what's considered the app has, the platform has a quota system. So can you just review that again, the quota system? You said something with 10-mile radius or. they
Yeah,
have
so
X
after,
amount of deliveries within a certain hour. Could you explain that?
yeah, so if having spoken with the delivery workers, they described how they are asked to do, the app gives them options about how far they are willing to deliver. And if they don't agree to deliver at the farthest radius, they are demoted, so to speak, and are not given as many jobs as other people that would agree to do even further deliveries. So, and so it's all controlled through the app's different algorithms. Each company has a different algorithm, and it's constantly evolving. The workers have let us know that, recently there was a minimum wage law passed in New York City at the city level to give workers minimum levels of pay, which is a positive thing. And after that passed, the apps started really tightening the screws and really using the algorithm to incentivize the workers do more and more in order for them for the apps to feel like they've gotten their money's worth, I guess, is how it's been described to us by the workers. So I don't know the specifics of like how many deliveries or anything like that, but just in these meetings that we've had with the delivery workers, they've described how if they're not as efficient as some of their colleagues, which, means running reds and other stuff, then they don't get good jobs anymore through the app. So it's their algorithm is rewarding drivers that do whatever they can to deliver quickly, even if it's unsafe for them and other people. So
Okay, Amy has a quick question.
Because said, do you have any other bills you're proposing that is gonna address the way these apps are managing their staff, these people, because there seem to be a lot of issues with it. And this is great, you're doing this, but do you have any other bills coming? I know it has nothing to do with traffic and transportation, just a yes or no would be good.
we're looking at other options, but we don't have any introduced at this moment. That we have a bill on artificial intelligence and algorithms, and which is what is being used. These algorithms are what is used to determine who gets what, and so we're looking at legislation that would address algorithms that incentivize unsafe behavior. But we don't have any legislation introduced yet.
Okay, that really doesn't have to do with these bills, so let's
Correct.
just move on. The next one, okay. Quick. It addresses what he's just presented, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the delivery people that you interviewed, are they in favor of this bill or of these bills that you're proposing?
They're worried about unintended consequences, and so we're working with them to see if we can assuage their concerns.
Are they in favor or not?
So like I said, they're worried about unintended consequences. So they think they said that it's on its face a good idea, but they worry that the apps will retaliate against them because of this. So we're working to try to address those concerns.
I guess the answer is no.
Complex, really
Yeah.
dumb. Need a form. Okay, so Senate Bill S7760 requiring minimum insurance. Somebody was asking about insurance thresholds for delivery companies.
Yes, so
Again, Sam. It's all-
yeah, so there was a few large incidents in our district where folks were hit. We had an individual come to our office who was hit by an e-bike and had to be hospitalized and was having trouble affording care. And other vehicle types have to be insured, as one of the folks on the call mentioned. And when there's accidents, that insurance helps ensure that the victim is able to receive the care they need. So this piece of legislation would ensure that delivery workers have that insurance. It's actually bringing the same requirements that we have for ride sharing workers, such as Uber and Lyft, to the delivery space. And so this would ensure that all delivery workers are insured. Should there be some kind of accident, then there would be access to that insurance money to help ensure people are taken care of.
I'm not the host.
Okay, let's see, so. Anybody have questions about that or
Yeah,
committee?
I do. I'm a
Okay,
committee.
Committee has questions,
No.
everybody else.
This is,
And CB2 board. member.
I actually, when I read about what the senator was doing, I spoke with the senator on a very brief basis to say, let's do it at Traffic and Transportation CB2. But as I was reading the bill, and there is a question here, this is much more complex and complicated than I thought. So let's go back to this insurance. So the independent
Contractor.
worker,
Yeah.
that person has to get insurance. Just, they have to get, it's not the app, the platform doesn't get insurance and like an umbrella insurance. It's the onus is on the individual worker to buy the equipment, to buy the bike, to get the insurance. They must be working like mad to do all these things.
Yeah. Yeah, so I believe that this would allow for the apps to provide the insurance. I actually don't know the answer to that question, unfortunately. We're bringing over the same requirements from for hire vehicles like Uber and Lyft, and in those cases the companies provide the insurance for the third part, for the contractors. So that's the model that we're working towards. I think that individuals are welcome to purchase additional insurance, and some do, but the model we're aiming for is what we already have under Uber and Lyft.
No, it's the company that gets the insurance for the worker, not the individual worker gets the insurance.
I can double check to confirm the structure of how that would work specifically, but I don't know where exactly the requirement is. We can follow up with you on that point, but the insurance is required, but I will follow up with you to see if the app has to pay for it.
Okay.
That's my understanding, but I'll confirm with you.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else on the committee want to ask questions about this insurance bill? Okay, how about our guests? Anybody? Anything
Behind you, Charlie. Gentleman.
Just a
Yes, so that you can be heard.
Perfect. You can hear me now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Hi, Baik again. So going back to the point that she just made, and I wanted to kind of extend it a little bit and ask a question there. So it looked like both the first bill and this bill are effectively imposing costs, additional costs on the delivery platforms. Of course, like in many business contexts, costs often get passed down to the employees at hand there. Have you thought at all about like the potentially impacting the business model at hand here with delivery in the first place and its potential negative implications on the workers? And if so, how do you plan to address that in this piece of legislation?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Our goal is to have the apps cover this. Other business sectors have this and don't pass it on to their employees, including the very similar for hire vehicles. So we're going to be continuing to, I unfortunately don't know this bill as well, so I can't confirm that off the cuff, but I know that that's a priority for us, and that's the model we're trying to follow. So I can follow up with the board and let you guys know exactly what the structure will be, but that's what we're trying to achieve. It's achieved in other business sectors. We're bringing that model over to the delivery space. But it's a concern, and I hear your concern, and we're working towards that end as well. So
just like a follow-up point, I don't believe any of these food delivery platforms have ever made a profit. I know DoorDash in its history has never turned a profit in any quarter. And so I think there needs to be heightened emphasis on ensuring that you're not creating a tipping point where the model becomes fully unsustainable.
okay.
Anybody else? Have to look around and see who's here.
Oh, you have Jeffrey again?
Oh, okay, so now I'm.
Yep.
Just a quick question. Is there a minimum insurance, liability insurance, much like is required on, let's say, the car? What would that be? And do you have a number?
Yeah, so this bill would require the same as the for hire vehicles, and that number is I think it depends on the situation, but there's different types of insurance. I think the minimum is 25,000, I believe. But then there's, for different situations, it goes up.
The follow-up question I have to this is, are there insurance companies that actually will insure e-bikes? There are insurance companies that will insure vehicles, motor vehicles, boats,
Yeah.
everything else. But how about bicycles? And is that already been determined?
There are, yeah, there's already delivery workers that do have insurance, that they get it on their own reconnaissance, but yeah.
Okay,
I guess
anyone
you have to
else?
shop around for insurance.
Most insurance companies will give it to you,
So,
personal liability insurance.
yeah, okay. Anyhow, nobody else, right?
No
We don't
other
see any
answer is-
phrase, we don't hear any voices or are there. So we'll move on to the third one. Number S561.
The hit and
Which
run.
increases the penalties for hit and run perpetrated by users of e-bikes and scooters. So there you go, Sam. Oh, you muted, Sam. Oh, he can't seem to unmute.
Okay, there we go. Sorry
Okay.
about that. You'd think after all these years on Zoom, I'd have figured it out. Sorry about that. So yeah, so this bill came out of unfortunately, this isn't a unique situation, but we had a rather publicized case of a hit and run by a scooter in our district where the individual passed away. And you know, unfortunately, the penalties for a hit and run under using a scooter or an e-bike don't match that of using a vehicle. And so we believe that, no one should be doing a hit and run regardless of the vehicle. If someone is injured, they should stay at the scene. And this bill simply matches it matches penalties regardless of the vehicle type. So the scooter and motor vehicle would have the same type of penalty for a hit and run.
Okay, anybody on the committee have questions about
I
that?
have one right behind.
There you are, Amy.
Why are not regular bikes included? There's been deaths of people hit by regular bikes. So why is it just e-bikes and scooters?
Yeah, because e-bikes and scooters are heavier and faster, so that was the thinking there. So that's why we did that.
Well, are you considering, we've had people come in front of the community board who have been severely injured by bicycles. We've had people, I know personally from working at University Settlement, people have been killed by bicycles. I'm not, are you willing to consider adding just?
We're always happy to discuss. No one's really brought that to us, but I can bring it back to the team.
Great, thank you.
Charlie.
Okay, yes, Lucia.
Yeah, so I'm following up on Amy's question. Why concentrate on e-bikes? Regardless of what type of bike it is, the non-motorized bikes are just as dangerous as e-bikes. Why not consider the bills to encompass all the bikes? Not just this bill about the penalties for hit and run, but the insurance, the registration. And I think I would take it even further than that. They should take safety courses. People who ride bikes, no matter what kind of bicycle you ride, or scooter, or one wheel, they should be forced to take safety. They should have a license, should have an insurance, should have registration, and should know where to park their cars. I came up with an acronym a few years ago. It's called SLIRP, SLIRP, and it stands for all those things: safety, license, insurance, registration, and P for parking.
That's clever. Slurp. I like it. Yeah, we need some slurp. I guess the reasoning is that
You didn't think of it.
Sorry?
You didn't think of it.
No, I'm trying to answer your question if you give me a second. So e-bikes and scooters, like I previously said, are notably heavier and faster, and so normal bikes are just by virtue of that less dangerous. But I hear what you're saying, that you are concerned about normal bikes as well. I think there has to be a balance. I think cyclists have to follow the rules of the road, but we also think that cycling is an important part of our transportation mix in the city, and bikes are good for the environment. They're healthy for people. They help reduce congestion, and folks have to follow the rules of the road, but they're an important part of our transportation in the city, and to make it too burdensome for cyclists of a regular bike is not something that we're currently considering.
Okay, Lois.
So just pulling that together, bouncing off what Rocio said in a certain sense. So the commercial e-bike driver or rider, whatever we call the rider or the driver, does not have to take classes like you don't, to take a license, you don't, to drive a car, you need to pass a test, you need a permit, and then you need to take the test. So the e-bike rider, commercial rider, does not have to take classes or pass a test to get that license. The license is just licensing the the e-bike itself, and the insurance is on the e-bike, the app is under, well, you're gonna look into that under the juris of the platform. So, and there's no age limit to be a commercial driver.
So
for-
commercial, you know, being employed by the apps, there
Yes.
are, you know, age restrictions on being employed.
That's what I
So-
asked before. What are the age restrictions?
Well, it's the same as any other job. I don't know them. I actually don't know that off the top of my head, but I think it's like 15 or something, but we can.
Okay, well, it's young.
It's
Yes.
not special
It's
for,
not like a car.
it's the
You have to
same,
be 18, yeah.
same age for any other job, you know.
A job, but they're driving motorized equipment. And there's no age limit to this, so I want to put that in
Maybe
recommendations.
wants to put that in.
Yeah.
Okay. Age limit for just the licensing.
It's for agenda item number 1. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, now, everybody on the committee has,
And helmet.
okay, your turn.
I'm just kind of curious if,
You want to come over?
And do you mind introducing yourself there?
John Spodek and, good to see everyone.
Hiya.
If we're talking about insuring, requiring insurance of bicycles, bicycles don't have anywhere near the infrastructure. I mean, shouldn't the city then provide comparable roads? I mean, if you go to almost many cities in the world, Paris, Amsterdam, there's great infrastructure for bicycles. And it's very easy to ride a bike and not interact with pedestrians because it's built that way. And having lived in New York City since the 80s, it's better than ever, but nowhere near what it is in other places. So, I mean, if we turn a few more car lanes into bike lanes, if we turned a lot more car lanes into bike lanes, we could, the interactions are left.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why folks end up riding the wrong way or riding on sidewalks, because there isn't the infrastructure that they need to feel safe themselves. So I think that's a great point. I think that you know, infrastructure is a key part of this whole conversation. As a state legislator, we're limited in what we can do about infrastructure. We definitely advocate for you know, we definitely advocate for that, but that's, you know, that's at the city level. But we're supportive of more infrastructure for cyclists. I think it's an important part of safety, not only for the cyclists, but would also lead to safety of other road users for sure.
Thanks, Sam. I just want to add, that we've written dozens of resolutions about urban planning, adding a safe lane to 6th Avenue, down Spring Street. Anytime we have an opportunity to actually create a protective bike lane, we have a discussion about it, we always do that, not everybody agrees with us on the community board, but this committee pretty much is unanimous in that approach. So we're not really discussing that today, but as Sam is saying, this kind of lends itself into creating a framework in which to make this a safe city cycle friendly city, and to separate cycles from pedestrians because they don't belong on the same pathway.
And hopefully to make it much more convenient as it is in many other places. I mean,
As a matter of fact, we're going to be showing a film
Okay.
if it comes over. Like I said to the committee, I don't know how many of you got a chance to look at it, but it's a film actually of San Francisco in 1906, when the motor car was introduced. And you will see what it looked like before there was any infrastructure, any kinds of regulations, any kinds of operative signs. And you get the idea. If it happened to them, it needs to happen with all
Has to
the
evolve.
new modes. Sorry, Lois, go ahead.
No, apropos Okay, I am curious, is there, or maybe someone on the committee or in the room, is there a law, a state law that prevents e-bikes, motorized bikes to go into what I call pedestrian bike lanes? Meaning the average bike person who's riding a bike, not an e-bike, goes into the bike lane. That's the purpose of it. And
then-
yet the e-bikers with their speed use the bike lane and almost can knock off a bike, a teenager riding or a family.
I can respond to that. So
Yeah.
there's different classes of bikes, e-bikes, and different classes of mopeds. And like e-bikes, I think people tend to get a little confused because there's too many categories and it's a little confusing. But e-bikes are allowed to be in the bike lane, and I think that's something to talk about. Unfortunately, we have limited space for bikes, and if that's a discussion for people to have, like, should we have another space for micro mobility? But that's something that people have suggested. They are allowed e-bikes, but mopeds and other vehicle types of that nature are not allowed in the bike lane. So we do see the mopeds in the bike lane, and that's not allowed.
Can I just add to that? Hudson River Park,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to have an e-bike, but
That's
They do.
however, this committee has written a resolution saying, well, let's keep the greenway for non-motorized vehicles, but let's create a path on West Street
Yes.
so that these e-bikes can actually make their deliveries. So it's exactly to your point, Sam, and the borough president was behind this for a while, hasn't really gained much traction for a while. But the idea is to create, there's so much space on West Street, give a dedicated lane to these faster moving electric micro mobility units and allow the cyclists to stay on Hudson
They
Park.
knock off the family.
It comes down to no enforcement and
that's
we need to create a different path.
That's a difference.
Yeah,
But
it's all these.
The other question you have to, we have these
West
stipulations.
Street is a state highway too. West Street is a state highway, so.
That's correct. It's New York State DOT.
Yes.
It's actually enforced by the NYPD. The other thing is, we have these belt and block streets and they're in terrible disrepair. And I ride on them every day because I come from Tribeca to the village, and I ride on them and I bounce all over the place. It's a very simple fix. It's called a granite path. And we also have 2 resolutions out there. Give cyclists a way to cycle safely and we'll take that route.
And also not go on the sidewalk and disturb pedestrians, which they do because they don't want to ride on the Belgian block. But anyhow, yeah, we've certainly weighed in on those things. But whatever, how about any other commentary here?
Jeffrey has a comment
Okay, Jeffrey.
or a question.
Yeah, well, I
So
was listening to what Lois said earlier, and I'm concerned about that. You keep referring to it as licensing, but it turns out you don't really mean licensing. You really mean registration, because you're not giving road tests or even written tests or any kind of test to the drivers. You are only registering the bike itself, and that suggests that the bike is the problem, and the bike is not really the problem. It is the operator that is the problem. And so why are you not codifying it much like a car would be, and actually creating a license category for the operator?
That's the word operator.
Ah, that's interesting. Have you thought of that one in your office?
So you're like creating like a license.
Well, like we would.
License plate, the license for the operator. Yeah.
Yes.
Cars have license plates.
Yeah. No, we're not considering that at the time. It's something to consider for sure. I think bikes are not currently required to be licensed. The operator is not required to have a license to operate a bike. And we we decided not to wade into that.
I think that's a mistake. My car is registered, but it's sitting on the as it's parked, doesn't hurt anybody. It's only until I get behind the wheel that it becomes a problem if I go the wrong way or run somebody down. So it's the operator that needs the regulation, and that would be my concern about this kind of codification.
Okay, that's
Oh, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Well, just,
You have to stand up.
Yeah, so come over here and give your input because we were talking to this.
Yeah. I'm with a senior citizen group from the East Village called Seniors Advocating for Safe Streets. And this is a major issue for us. If a senior citizen is struck by a bike or an e-bike or whatever, they are much more likely to be injured seriously. And I think you may have seen in the newspaper, there was a woman down in Chinatown who was knocked over and actually killed because she was knocked over. Licensing a bike at least makes it possible for police to identify who is doing the bad riding. You know, unless we have, at least you can identify the bike. And with all the city bikes that are being rented, I can tell you over and over again, I have seen riders on city bikes go the wrong way up the street, go on sidewalks. I understand they may be trying to be safe, but I was once hit by a kid driving a bike the wrong way on First Avenue. And I was looking where the cars came from, and the kid was riding a bike. He was, I forget, maybe 10 years old. Very fortunately, I did not have a major injury, but I was hit hard enough and knocked on the sidewalk so that I had a wool jacket on and my arm went through, you know, there was a hole in the wool jacket. The kid stopped, turned around, looked at me and left. Now, if there was a license plate, there would be some possibility of identifying the bad driver or the bad bicyclist. And that's why I think licensing, even for non-commercial e-bikes, we have so many city bikes that are rented. And I can tell you, a lot of the people who ride them do the same kind of bad riding. These are regular bikes, but there's no way of identifying who they are. I have tried to get police to enforce, to go after or arrest or stop somebody who was doing the wrong thing, a bike rider, and they refused to my face. So if there's a license plate, at least there's a way of identifying the bike. And with the city bikes, maybe there's a way of identifying the rider who rented the bike. But that's what I think will change the mindset of the riders, because so many of them just don't care. They do what's best for them, and they foresee no penalty, so they can do whatever they want. In Europe, they are licensed in European countries. We should find out what they do. They've been using bikes for a long time. But in order to enforce bad bike riders or e-bike riders or scooters,
Please.
yeah, you have to have some way of identifying, and that's why the licensing is so important. There are other things that are important, but that's,
Yeah, okay.
thank you.
I had a question about that. So this New York State, the entity that's responsible for this whole array of concerns that we're speaking about. For instance, you're talking about e-bikes and the delivery bikes. Would laws of a similar sort apply to regular bikes? Could there be New York State laws, or would that be city-based? I'm a little confused about that.
Yeah, so the state gets involved because of in a few ways, namely in this case because of the DMV being the entity responsible for licensing and things of that nature. And you know, the state does regulate insurance, so that's one of the reasons why we brought that bill forward. And then some of the penalties are in state law for hit and runs and things of that nature. So that's how we have gotten involved, you know, under our state purview. Could you have a bill for any bike? I think the answer is yes. You know, I think that's, you know, that would be a big change to the how things would currently work. So that would be, you know, there's concerns that it would disincentivize cycling at a time when we're trying to shift folks into different types of transportation types other than cars. So that's one concern. But yeah, I think that's a conversation that's being had right now. I think that's something that, you know, we're open to hearing more about. I think we would tend to maybe not want to do that for every single bike. But, you know, I think it's worth having the discussion about and seeing, you know, what makes sense and what, you know, the consensus is.
But if we wanted to submit a suggestion, or even a suggestion as part of maybe one of the resolutions we're writing here, the proper place would be then to the state, to your office, to the state senator, rather than to the city council. I guess that's what I'm asking.
I think that the state would be responsible, given that the DMV is in charge of that. I mean, I think the city might, you know, legislators try to get creative sometimes. So maybe I wouldn't be surprised if like the city would be able to create some other type of identification, as they did, for example, with the New York City ID.
Okay, right. I know the bill, I read it. There's
Okay, thank you. So a question here.
Yeah, if I may just jump in.
Okay, come here. Nobody here. We hear you. Say that. Come back.
Roy, can you also introduce yourself too?
Yeah, Roy Ruiz with Assembly Member Deborah Glick's office. I just wanted to piggyback up what Sam said about DMV being the agency that regulates most of the time motor vehicles. And since this is a conversation about motor vehicles, it is about right now, as far as we know, it's about regulating bikes. The type of fuel in this case is irrelevant.
Right.
You know, it's the fact that these vehicles are motorized that is why the law is being discussed. Bicycles are not, e-bikes are 19 times more likely to hit somebody and damage them in a way that changes their life forever sometimes and can kill people than bikes do. And so right now, I think like the problem is not so much the bikes, although there are incidents where bikes do hit and fracture bones and damage people. But I think it's more, the danger is more these speeding e-bikes that speed upwards of, 20 to 30 miles per hour.
Or more
sometimes. Yeah. And that's why right now this is what's being discussed. So yeah, I do think that it it is a state issue because of the DMV, because of that agency. I don't think the city has an agency that regulates any type of vehicle right now.
But I respond to that, I really appreciate your saying. I've heard this, that same thing over and over, only concentrating on e-bikes, et cetera, because they're more dangerous. I have to be honest, and this is not against you, I feel like I'm hearing elected officials say we can't walk, we should come at the same time.
Okay, we can discuss.
I think.
Okay, we're moving on now. I say, conversation. Thank you, Rose. Good information. Okay.
We have a fourth bill.
Fourth bill, number 7703. And this requires dealers to register mopeds at the point of sale.
Yeah. So this is a newer one that we recently introduced. You know, if you've been walking around recently, you've probably seen that there's been an increase in mopeds in the city. And there's been a few reasons for that. We've, you know, in our conversations with the delivery workers and other reporting in the news, you know, we've seen that the lack of charging infrastructure for e-bikes, the lack of, you know, concerns about fire safety because lithium-ion batteries, if not of high quality and properly charged, have the potential to be a fire hazard. Some of these concerns, in addition to growing delivery radius, forcing drivers to go further and further distances, has made it so that e-bikes are less convenient and less of a useful tool, and has forced some people to use gas mopeds because they don't have to worry about charging them, and they don't have to worry about you know, a tank of gas can last a few days, versus on an e-bike you have to change the battery every few hours if you're delivering nonstop. So because of that, we've seen a large increase in mopeds. However, mopeds are a different type of motor vehicle. These motorized vehicles are actually legally considered limited use motorcycles. So they're more akin to motorcycles than e-bikes. They're much heavier, they're much faster, very different designation. And all of mopeds are required to be registered. You have to be licensed to operate them, as opposed to e-bikes. You don't have to be licensed to operate them. And you have to register the vehicle and have a license plate. And I don't know if you've been checking, but a lot of them are not registered. If you look, they don't have a license plate, a lot of them. You know, part of this is a lot of folks don't realize they need to be licensed. Some folks maybe don't want to go through the trouble, but you know, it's a problem. And so to help address that, they're currently required, as I said, to be registered in order to operate on city roads. But folks are not doing that. So in order to help simplify the process and help ensure that people are actually registering their vehicle, this bill would require that registration to happen at the point of sale. So at the dealership, as many cars do, you know, a lot of car dealerships offer that service. So basically it would help inform moped purchasers that this is a requirement, and you know, force them to do it on the spot. And we also like to think that it would help lessen the burden on moped riders, because a lot of folks are in violation of this because they're just simply not aware. So if they're able to do it right on the spot, and it's you know, they don't have to go research where to go or go to the DMV or anything like that, you know, it would really help ensure that people are following and compliant with this law.
Thank you. Anybody here? No, you can't, because we're in the middle of talking about something else right now.
Oh,
When you're ready, you can
City
mention it.
Council.
When we're ready, you
Okay.
can. Yes.
You gotta,
Road seal. And, okay, first the committee and board members.
So regarding 7703, what about private sales between two individuals that are not a dealership? How are you going to enforce that registration?
You're muted.
So current state law is that you are required to have to register your vehicle before you drive it. So the majority of vehicles are purchased through these dealers, and so we are addressing that aspect of it. This bill does not touch upon in private sales.
It was a matter since most mopeds are purchased from dealers.
but the point is, all
So
vehicles of
head to someone
type
else,
need to be registered
right?
and licensed.
So they're already required to be registered, yes. And
Bill
so this,
table. Right, okay, and there was somebody else, yeah, Amy.
I don't know anything about mopeds. Are there specific dealers for mopeds, or are they sold at car dealerships, or I'm just curious how enforcement is gonna happen and where this.
yeah. So it's interesting because when I think most people, when I say dealer, they're picturing kind of like, you know, like a car dealership. And actually most of the time these they kind of look like bike repair shops. They're just, they can be small, they're just storefronts, and they a lot of them, there's not as many in Manhattan, but there are still some. It's basically just a storefront, and they usually have like a row of mopeds right outside of their shop. Basically, if you're selling mopeds, you're a moped dealer. That's how it's that's the gist of it.
Enforce it, these are smaller, they seem. Smaller stores, how would that be enforced?
I can't really hear you that well. Did you say how would it be enforced?
Enforced.
So the dealers, to be a registered dealer, you have to be compliant with state law. So if you're not, you know, you could lose your license to sell these vehicles, and that would harm your ability to have your business. But enforcement is also done by I'm forgetting which office does it right now. I think it's with the DMV. They have an enforcement agency, an enforcement arm. And I think this year I was just talking to them the other day. They've gone to a number of dealerships in Manhattan and across the city to make sure that they're compliant with current regulations. So they do enforcement. And I think right now, given that there's this increase in mopeds, you know, we've been talking to them and letting them know that this is a problem, and they've actually increased you know, from their baseline of regular enforcement. They've done more outreach to the dealers, and they've done more enforcement actions this year than in previous years.
Well, so what Rocio was asking you about, that kind of slips through the cracks, right? There's this little private arrangement. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, like if you have your own moped, you sell it to someone else, you know,
I mean, the law requires you to
That's
do
right.
something, yeah.
the law already exists. I'm not sure, you know, if you have an idea on how we can, you know, we can't really be like monitoring people's phones for like, oh, they said the word moped, they're gonna sell their moped.
Yep.
Like I don't really know how you would do that. If you have an idea, happy to consider it.
Yeah, so there are always these things that slip through the cracks, but we're trying to do the best we can. That's, okay,
Yeah.
anything else? Yes, one over again.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Once again, Faik. Nice to meet you all.
Again.
Again, as it pertains to this particular bill, like, I'm a passionate cyclist. I definitely want to see more regulation as it pertains to, like, you know, segregating mopeds from bicycles. I think this bill addresses like kind of part of the equation, right? Which is like moving forward when mopeds are being sold, you have like an additional method that could potentially help with enforcement. What about, like, I guess, this historical backlog, people who already have a moped? What are there any plans or bills in place, or that, like, is there any work that Senator Hoylman-Sigal is planning to work on that will address that historical backlog where there are already violators up there on the streets?
Yeah, so that wouldn't quite be our purview. You know, that those riders are in violation of existing law, and actually you know, the NYPD has actually, that's one thing that they have done. They've you know, they've done a lot of confiscations of mopeds and more enforcement on mopeds than most other traffic enforcement issues. So actually you can look online, they've confiscated thousands of them. So I think that would be the avenue to address the ones that are not in compliance at the moment. And then, you know, those people have lost their vehicle, and then they would have to register it, or, you know, I actually don't know what the process is of getting, if you can get your vehicle back if it's been confiscated like that, but I would assume that you would have to register it to get it back. Or if you go and buy a new one, and if this has become law, then they would have to register it before they can leave the shop.
Jeffrey has a question.
Hi, you know, I personally, I think this is a very good idea to make the shops do the registration right on the spot. I might tell you also, though, the concern about private sales isn't really a concern. If you require mopeds to be registered, as motorcycles are and as they would have to be, any sales that take place on a motor vehicles, to get registration, you have to pay sales tax. You have to go to the motor vehicle department, pay your sales tax, and then register your vehicle. One of the things that I'm concerned about is the kind of thing that happens with motorcycles on the street. For example, a lot of motorcyclists Velcro their license plates onto, and that's a concern. So I would like to see something in the wording that requires the license plate to be bolted on, or some permanent attachment. I also think you're going to need to address what happens with all other vehicles is a VIN, vehicle identification number, because that is the process by which you would, if somebody was putting a fake plate on or any slapdash plate on, that would be a way you could determine the actual violation and therefore find a culprit that may have in fact injured an elderly person on the street. If you don't have the numbers right, it doesn't work. So VINs would be an important ingredient. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's actually already illegal to sell mopeds without a VIN. So that's something that we're working on the enforcement side. And the DMV, that's one of the things they check for when they go to a dealer and they are looking at the vehicles that they have in stock, because that is already a requirement. So that's a good point, because without that number, so that's one of the only ways that, you know, that's one of the ways most mopeds are, the most violations are you're either not registered or you have a vehicle that's not compliant, and that usually is because you bought one that doesn't have a VIN number. Usually people don't even realize that, but that's only coming from, that usually only happens if you're buying from an unregistered dealer, which is not compliant with state law. So that's one of the things that the DMV enforcement does, like shut down these unregistered dealers.
An unregistered dealer. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody here, there, anywhere? Well, I think, did you have something to do with what we're discussing? because we really do have to move on.
No, I just wanted to mention that the city council
Mhm.
has a bill coming up.
Okay,
That will be having a hearing, and I have a little information about it if anybody would like.
okay.
Robert,
So be telling the full board that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a broader kind of exposure.
I live in Board 3, but.
You do?
That's the word.
Oh.
When Shirley doesn't face the microphone, we can't hear her. She's garbled. She has to face the microphone when she
It's not
speaks.
explained that she should tell this information to the full board so that everybody can hear. Did you hear me now, Jeffrey?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Carter
Fix that microphone.
has a question.
Come
Hey
on.
guys, yeah, I'm out on the street, so I'm not gonna turn my camera on, but I wanted to, a couple things. First, Jeffrey raises a good point. All motor vehicles that are sold in the United States have to have what's called a certificate of origin or an MSO. And then that's your original document that you register a motor vehicle off of. And that's where you have a VIN number from. And that's actually a federal requirement. The issue that I think that's partially happening is that a lot of the mopeds that are being sold are improperly imported into New York, are being sold by non-licensed dealerships. And I think that's a different issue that people are not really recognizing, because the marketplace for Class C motorcycles, which have a top speed of 20 miles an hour, and they can often be made to go faster if they take off the speed governors, that it's a very small market, and it's just something that's recently become bigger and bigger. And I guess I have a concern and a question, and I would think that while the legislation also says, that they're registered at the point of sale, I think it should be additionally should include, or the vehicle is properly registered with a license plate, so that individuals can, instead of having to pay a dealership an extra fee, can go do it on their own should they choose to do so. And I know the reason I raise that is because the cost of becoming a registering agent for a motor vehicle dealership is significant. And a lot of these stores are just simply not big enough. So if we want more compliance, should give a few avenues for compliance. And I say this having worked in this business in the past. And, this is really an issue because the cost of these is so low, but yet the motor vehicle fees to become an agent are pretty significant. And the titling services that do this work also cost quite a bit. And so you're talking about adding on a pretty big cost to what for some of these scooters are not that much. So it's when you're looking at access and getting people to follow the law, you really need to make sure that the cost is in line with the vehicle, because then that promotes, I think, people following the rules. And
That's a good point.
and yeah, so there's, because these are small dealerships, they're not a dealership in the way anybody here is thinking of it. And just becoming a registered motor vehicle dealer for something that is such low margins is the idea is to get people to come into the legal marketplace, I think.
Okay, but Sam, you were saying though anyhow that this is being done, but it doesn't seem to be enough to get the kind of expensive registration that is needed.
So the reason we're requiring it at the point of sale, as opposed to what you're saying, giving people the option to do it at a later time, is because
no, I didn't say later time. I said before it leaves.
Well, that's what
the shop.
bill is. I'm confused then.
No, but that's at point of sale. What you're suggesting is that the motor vehicle dealer becomes the entity with the ability to license the vehicle. That is a separate process under, for car dealerships. Some of them have it, some don't. Others use a service which brings all the required documentation to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and obtains the license plates. Some dealerships are able to issue them themselves, I believe. My point is that whatever avenue happens, that it doesn't leave the shop without a license plate on it or that waiver letter.
Yep,
So that you're giving some other avenues for compliance with that. So the way that I'm reading it, it looks like the dealer has to do the work. When it's actually, that's a little bit ambiguous because it's often done by third parties who do the work. And the dealer does not have to become registered with DMV in order to do that. And so that's a, you know, a nuance, but if you're trying to get everything done, that's what a small shop that only sells 15 or 20 of these a year or 30 or 40 might do, right? As opposed to somebody who's selling 300 or 400, where paying for that right to do that would make sense.
Yep.
From there. And so it's a little bit more of a catch-all with the same end result.
Okay.
Can you suggest, Carter, what other outlets should be required?
Well, it's not necessarily that the vehicle just needs to be registered and entitled before it leaves the shop. I mean, that's very different from who does it.
Ah, okay. So it needs to.
That makes sense.
You know, because, you know, for somebody who has time on their hands going and standing in line at the DMV after you're given the paperwork and they charge you a smaller amount of fees is significantly different than paying an extra $200 on a scooter that doesn't cost that much for another service to do that work.
Well, we can definitely look at how much, you know, we could codify how much the DMV is charging or anything like that. So, and
Well, it's the third parties.
You're exactly right, Carter.
I mean, that's this, and I just know, I know this because I did it for a long time, and it's a significant pain in the ass. And it's also a huge overhead if you're not dealing in significant volume, because your fee structure is the same as selling luxury automobiles. When you get the right to write the registration. So
Carter, what you're saying to Sam is suggesting that the language be changed to say a moped can't leave the dealership until it's been registered or something like that.
that's right. Or they have the waiver letter.
Yeah, that's so.
Yeah, right, but I mean.
And it shouldn't be as expensive as a motor vehicle. It should be codified so that the price is reasonable, in line with the cost of a moped. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
And just as another note, I just pointing out that the top speed of a Class C motorcycle, which is a moped, is only 20 miles an hour, which is actually slower than a lot of the e-bikes.
Yeah, that's really so weird.
Yep. And the mopeds need they're in the highway.
I think we can move on.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Want to ask Sam anything, comment on anything? Okay, then I guess we'll go into business session. Oh, unless you have it, Phil?
I do have it, if you want to.
Okay, just look at a little of it.
Look at it.
If you can get it on the screen. Again, this is a film from San Francisco in 1906, when the motor vehicle car was first introduced. And see if it reminds you of what's going on today.
I can't actually play the sound because it'll interfere with this.
Oh, it wasn't big enough sound in the first place, obviously. They said it was one.
What I can do too, that you get the point, is that when I go a little faster, you just see.
Whoa.
Exactly, you see how it's just utter chaos, right? Like here, let's just take a look at this intersection. It's coming through, there's no rules.
Yeah, we can fast forward a little too.
No, this is an interesting part, right? Look at this car just cutting right off.
But in other words, you don't see signage, right?
Yeah.
There's no regulation.
Thank you for sharing this. This is hilarious.
Yeah, I sent it to you all, by the way, so you can just look in the link if you want to look at
Yeah.
the whole thing. And that has sound effects, I think.
Well, at least we have lanes.
Well, there were no lanes, I mean, there were.
We have
tracks.
lanes now.
Always.
And less population.
And less population, really, can you imagine now? Well, now think about what is going on with various new modes, which really have not been defined in terms of where they should be on the street, how they should be regulated. And it's kind of almost like it, to me, it seemed like history repeats itself. In a sense.
It always does. Right?
Yeah, except now it's other kinds of things that have just been introduced. It's the same thing. If they never did anything about this. With these kinds of vehicles now. And I guess it's to say that, yeah, definitely cars and trucks, they need to go. But there are certain laws at least, and so there's some kind of framework. And I guess from my point of view, we now have to work on another kind of framework. And so talking our business session about this, Brad bills are kind of like the beginning.
Yeah.
Saying certain things. Obviously, maybe they need to be fleshed out, and I guess that's what we have to talk about. Everybody seen enough to get the idea?
Yes.
Yep, well, here too, okay, yeah, we may as well, okay, so now we are in business session, so. Let us. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
But, right, is Caroline there? Say thank you to Caroline too for making the arrangements and, we'll get some, oh, Nicole, so glad you got on again. I heard you somehow fell off. That happens to me all the time, but anyhow, thank you all, and please stick around to hear what we have to say and how we deliberate, because that's what we're gonna do now. And so we will go back to 7587.
The point of information. Does the assembly have a bill similar to this?
Right.
Bills?
Yeah, I think some of them actually would have the sister bill for the assembly, but some don't.
So it's not all of it,
But, yeah,
yeah, so it has to be really
I couldn't tell you.
reviewed by the assembly in their version.
Yeah.
As well as by the Senate. Okay, well anyhow, here we are. 7587. 7587, since we'll go by the agenda. And that was the one that required the registration and licensure of e-bikes for commercial purposes and holding the delivery platforms responsible for sidewalk violations. And I'm on 73 here. I brought some interesting comments, but I think that it's almost not necessary to do that. So I know, Rocio, you were saying, and I think everybody agrees, that probably it should be going beyond just the commercial. I guess what I would comment by saying is, my feeling is maybe they're starting with this at least, because this at least you can get a handle on. And then maybe they move on to the non-commercial in the next batch.
Well, I think time.
I just think they can't have everything in there,
Right.
but that's my opinion.
No, I understand that, but I think time is of the essence. Because many people do get hurt with just regular bikes.
Absolutely.
One of our former board members who has passed away, her name was Carol Yankee. You remember Carol? Yeah, passed away, and she was hurt very badly by a bike. A regular bike, just standing on the corner of 7th Avenue by one of the restaurants. And she got ran over and broke her arm.
Wow.
Anyway, and I know a lot of people that have gotten hurt. So bicycles need to follow the rules of the road, no matter what kind of bicycle, no matter how old you are, no matter what you're driving or riding. It should be the rules for everyone. That's my thought.
Right.
So, okay, Amy, I don't see you, but thank you for telling me. Okay. Yeah, so, okay, so this is an example, obviously, where someone was, right, okay. And we heard, yeah, go ahead, Amy.
No, I wrote down that Sam said that, this is a quote, bicycles, regular old bicycles, have been an important part of our transportation system. Once something part of a transportation system, we still have, I believe, the mentality that this is recreational only, but it's not anymore. And that goes along with trying to encourage people to ride more bikes and other. So once something is part of a quote, unquote, transportation system, I believe it needs to be regulated. And that's all I just said.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what the film says.
Right, so
The film is telling you very graphically, you can't have the cane.
I'm quoting Representative
Right,
Siegelman. So now that people are talking about bikes as part of the transportation system, it needs to be regulated.
I think we should stick to the bills and the topic of the evening.
but this is actually.
And make this a recommendation.
Because, okay, so we can say certainly commercial bikes are part of the system.
And
And that is more they need, and they need to define regulation. So that's one thing for sure. And the other, I guess, I mean, do we want to suggest other things to it? I mean, we could say, obviously, that we think that not only commercial, but we can throw it in. But I think that really almost goes to a whole other bill.
It does.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yes, because then you have to, I don't want to dwell on this, but then you have to think of the teenager riding the bicycle and the registration and the license and the licensing and the insurance, and it's a teenager getting a gift. The grandparent gives the bike to the kid.
it's a nice.
So it's, I think we should stick with the commercialization, the commercial and making a living. And I mean, there's many things, and just the thing that comes out of me right now is that these are young people trying to make a living. And they're putting themselves in danger. And this quota system, I didn't know about the quota system, and it's going on speed. And yeah, they have to, it's very, it bothers me, you know, I see bikers, delivery people in my elevator, and I don't even think of anything, they're just delivering, but they're putting their lives at risk.
That's true too. What else was said about, the purpose of it? I mean, the purpose of this is the same as really what people have been experiencing with non-commercial, right? Which is that there is definite danger, right? I mean, that would be one of the things we would.
It's unsafe condition.
That people have been injured. And
they're at risk. The drivers,
drivers
the operators, I feel for them. This is like making a living and without restriction.
Are we talking 67?
Yeah, I'm looking at 7587, just right.
Yeah, 3587, I think is about how it impacts migrant workers.
Yeah.
And what are, you know.
Wait a minute, 75, okay, I got the wrong one. Okay, here's 7587. So, yeah,
In
this
the
is talking
winter
about-
and the rain and the snow. It's
Just-
like, we don't
And
think of that.
The idea being that, the cost is supposed to be taken up by the, apps, by the delivery services.
Yeah. Although the operator buys the bike.
I just want to, I think it replies to 1 and 2, Heidi brought up. And I don't know if we talk about this here or where, but they're pointing out that, you know, we are rightly concerned about these people making a living, right? Who are these perpetrated people? And that these apps have never made
Accountable?
profit. No, never made a profit.
Well, I don't care.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
the
right.
point is, I believe the point was that if, I'm not saying we shouldn't support this, but I don't know if we mentioned this somewhere, that if all these additional costs come into play, not only for the bike rider, but for the app company, will the app company fold? And then we'll go back to a much less efficient and fewer people employed. So I just wanted to throw that in. Maybe this is not the place to talk about it, but those first two would be creating this extra cost that you're talking about. So I wonder, I don't have the answer. I guess you have to talk about, do we talk about that there's, yes, we need to make it safer, but we also need to make sure these businesses stay in business. I don't know.
So they don't make a profit?
Yeah, that,
Well, that's what you were saying. Right?
Can I ask a question? I just want to make sure you don't work for any bike lobby group and you don't work for any apps. Okay, thanks.
So, but, I think, I mean, a way to address that is potentially just asking for like an analysis on the potential costs that are involved here. Because I don't think it necessarily needs to be a binary, like, oh, like, we'll take a stake in a position, rather like understand what the costs are and then like see what the implications of that might be.
So pro business.
Can we say that we are in favor of regulation?
Yeah,
The regulation. This is the one that operation of electric this bike.
And this is exactly why I don't think it can go to any other than commercial e-bikes to start. It's just not gonna be untenable otherwise. At least there's an avenue in which to begin, and I believe it's early. And we're talking about traffic safety and create something to start. I think we should support these bills because it takes a step.
For sure.
And then if it's successful, you're gonna learn from it and then you can expand it.
My question, oh, sorry, I made some points. Is there a requirement for helmets? Because there's no requirement for wearing a helmet on a bike. Only under 14 years old. And then after 14, it's up to the individual if they want to wear a helmet or not. And I was just curious.
I don't think
That's getting into the weeds, I think, a little bit.
You know what, we're
I know
addressing,
helmets, but is there a requirement?
no, there's not a requirement. And.
They should have a requirement.
That's been a lot of conflict about it.
I remember this.
Doesn't apply here. Let's
Okay.
stick to what's here.
Yes.
And what.
So when we talk about bikes, I want
How
helmets.
we want them to change it, we may want to say, this is for commercial, we understand
Right.
this is the beginning, this is a way of testing out these precepts of. That, and we hope that bills will follow that also address non-commercial.
That's good as a therefore.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here, right, is the resolution, hope
Yeah,
that,
everyone should wear a helmet.
well, no, bring that up, if you want to have.
I did it, we did it years ago when I first got to the committee with Ian, remember the tall drink of water?
Of course, he was.
Ian,
right?
yeah, and I said, everyone should have a helmet, and he said, no. You know, it's individual right, because he didn't want to mess his hair. I remember that.
Right, okay, anything else?
I mean, the way I would structure it is that we support.
We hope that bills will follow. that
Yes.
also-
That's right. Exactly.
Also, I know this is strange. We really need a forum. I would like to hear from the operators. I would like to hear from the app platform people.
Well, the only thing we can do,
No. Because,
we're doing what we can at the community board, okay?
I think Carter's point in the very last one is important.
Let's go one by one, okay? Unless you want to put it in here too.
No, I mean, I think it does belong in the first. Needs to be, it has to be affordable. It goes into everything we're talking about. It has to be business first. We're trying to make folks accountable for the way they're riding. You can't make it exorbitant in order to do the cost of the licensing, right? So it's not about government collecting money. It's about making sure cyclists behave themselves on the road
Right,
and they're accountable. And they're not driving recklessly.
Well, do we,
and make it affordable. It shouldn't be a DMV, like what Carter's point is, it can't be $850 for a license. It has to be in sync with,
okay,
what they're making.
so here.
it does, it's part of the licensing.
So,
Pulling delivery platforms responsible for any sidewalk violations. They did, I think they have it in their bill. They talk about how it can't be passed on to the workers.
okay,
But if their individual is registering their bike, that's fee. Nobody's told us it was $25, $10, $5, or no fee, 95 cents. The fact is, we want to have accountability.
the affordable.
The workers are
Yeah.
responsible for the equipment.
That's correct. They own their
They
own,
have to buy the bike. How much is a bike?
be $3,000 for one of those black fast bikes. New, used, probably gonna for
Okay.
100,000.
Okay, we support the bill. Do we support?
Of course,
Okay.
Yes.
Unanimous support. With stipulations.
with the hope that it will expand it to include more micro mobility.
I think you could mention that, at least I feel, these bills fall short of protecting pedestrians and riders of these vehicles, these bicycles. The bills don't really address all the problems.
I mean, they do partially.
They fall short, is what I said. They fall short
Yeah,
of addressing all.
I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a senator, certainly you are a council person. But my understanding in dealing with many of these bills over the years is that you can't have an all comprehensive bill. You have to have a bill that addresses one thing. I think it gets passed more easily that way. If it gets too complicated, well, I don't know, federal bills are very complicated. The infrastructure bill, I guess, but it's a different thing, I think, on a local level.
Yeah, so the city council,
That's my
you
opinion.
read that, right? They're asking for all e-bikes to be registered. So, you can support that.
Thank you.
So, but this is what the DMV, what the New York State Department of Transportation can handle. So I
Right.
think that this is within their purview.
We have to talk about enforcement.
Bills, that's more bills, we probably could be combined if we wanted to do an all omnibus bill. Is I think because each one.
I think you could.
deals with
Point.
certain kinds of violations that maybe we can start getting a handle on and doing something about it. So agreed with what you're saying. I mean, I'm talking from Shirley's point of view, and the committee may feel differently, so let me shut up.
No, I agree, but I really would want to focus on the bill, show our support and say this is the first step.
Right, say the first steps.
Shirley, I think we should have to mention that regardless of these bills, enforcement of what laws are in effect before even this bill.
How can they even, I can't even imagine how they would enforce it.
And that is a real problem with our city because you have New York State DOT on one hand doing the infrastructure for some parts of the street, and you have New York City doing enforcement. And so Brad is not at all on the enforcement side. There is no New York State Police.
Right,
So
exactly. Well, they're all in New York State.
and then like
New York State.
Yeah, that's right.
They
There is
are.
no New York
I've been
State Police
stopped.
on the Greenway in Hudson River Park.
Yeah.
State, this would go to like state DOT.
But
I
a state, a
guess.
smoky state, Smoky
We should
Bear,
say
not
something
coming
about,
here.
yes, and he talked about, the camera enforcement. But again, now, the state, there's some part of that,
This
yeah, because.
license plates are issued by the state. Remember we did the paper license plates and the obscure license plates? It's all state.
And all,
New York City policemen see a car that's parked.
Yeah.
They can't do anything about it parked. As soon as it starts moving, it's moving violation.
right, so it is state, because I remember they only had it right near schools. And then
Yes.
we had to push New York State to allow it to be a little broader,
Right.
the camera. So we
And
can
how
say
is that
something
going
about
for us?
promote camera enforcement.
How is that working for us? Yeah.
Because he did mention that,
Yeah.
Sam mentioned it.
Amy has,
Yeah, Amy,
Waited on a conference last year to talk to the DOT and I asked them, cameras, you just be. Oh, I waited to talk to the head of DOT after Adam's press conference last year to ask
Yeah.
about the camera that they put on the corner by my apartment building would also be able to capture bike infractions. And they said that they are not interested in bike infractions. So I just want to let you know that even if we have a license plate, they don't.
Yeah, but Lord. Oh, God.
Just thought I'd let you.
Yeah, so we pretty well know what we're gonna say about this one.
I know, yeah,
I know, right.
I know, a lot of
They're
stuff.
they're all three.
It's good, it's a start.
Right, okay, so 6760 was of the insurance requirements, and that was for the third party food delivery apps. So it'd be that the apps, the platforms, whatever we want to call them, they would have to be insured. Any comments?
Makes sense.
I wonder if they're already insured.
67.
I guess they have to,
Most businesses have to be insured.
maybe because they're independent contractors, these cyclists, now they're saying the apps have to cover their insurance. And that's what I did.
That's how I interpreted it.
Okay, so, what do we say? We say.
They need more
something that
money.
isn't covered?
No, minimal insurance is a positive step towards safety. And everyone being required, being licensed or registered and then having insurance is your beginning regulation on behavior.
And classes. They should have classes.
So they said $25,000 was the minimum.
Minimum.
For insurance.
25,000 doesn't cover
He said it steps up.
stays in a hospital.
I don't think, Sam, it might have been personal property, 25,000, and
All that, the life.
personal injury could have been much higher.
Knew a lot about what he was.
Did not.
He wasn't specific.
He's a legal person too.
Well, maybe he wasn't so prepared for it.
So I think I know a lot more about. So, but it's also a safety issue. Safety issue, right? And is there anything else we want to say about it? I mean, the safety issue and the reparations for those that get hurt.
Well, that's why it could be, I think, of an omnibus resolution, because once again, if you're asking migrant workers to take on insurance, or it has to be, it's like,
Right.
what is the impact? I mean, you have a lot of these folks that are living in hotels and their bikes are all parked outside their hotel. You might know this better than me. And then you're telling them they have to get registered, they have to, make sure they're insured, and it's a lot to ask, right?
And they have to show papers to register.
Yeah, platform's supposed to get insured? This isn't to me. Okay, here it is. Here's the reason. Safety risk. The bikes, the electric bikes and
okay,
scooters pose a significant safety risk for riders and pedestrians when operated recklessly. Legal electric scooters can weigh up to 100 pounds, travel up to 20 miles an hour. I think they can even travel more when they take,
They certainly do.
yeah, because what do they call those things?
The throttle.
What?
It's like a throttle.
Yeah.
Well, you have
Oh,
pedal
buttons,
assist.
I think they call them, the thing that stops, it's supposed to stop you from going above a
Oh.
certain.
Oh, like a limiter.
Yeah, there's a name for it, I can't think of it now,
Can't
but,
think of it,
but,
yeah.
but they often take them off.
Need attenuator,
What?
They have to make
need
a
attenuator, right? It's a limiter. That's really what it is.
limiter.
Limiter.
Yeah, well, it has a name, but that doesn't matter,
Yeah,
I'll find
They have to
it.
make a quota. Oh, my goodness.
Whatever the case, anyhow, they often take that thing off. The very thing that keeps them at the 20 miles an hour, they go much higher than that. Generating more than enough force to seriously injure people and even kill pedestrians. So okay, so we've got our whereases here, rise in reckless e-bike and scooter use added by third-party delivery apps. Incentivizes delivery people to make as many deliveries as possible, as fast as possible. Okay, the bill will ensure that third-party delivery services are directly invested in the safe conduct of the delivery people, and that in the unfortunate case of a collision, the victim has an adequate source of compensation for their medical care, pain, and suffering.
So it's the app's responsibility to make sure that the driver is covered.
And who's the victim?
Oh,
Can you read it one more time? That's what it seemed like.
Oh, that's right. Oh, right, but not that the driver pays. The app pays.
I don't know. Can you read that one more time? It could be interpreted differently.
Okay, okay, these are all the reasons, these bad conduct, et cetera, et cetera. This bill will ensure that third-party delivery services are directly invested in the safe conduct of their delivery people. And that, in the unfortunate case of a collision, the victim has an adequate source of compensation for medical care pain suffering by requiring insurance coverage for delivery persons while engaged with a third-party delivery service. The certain insurance requirements of this bill are similar to those required by state law, as he was saying, for hire vehicle drivers working for transportation network companies.
Who's the
It's
victim?
Companies. Victim is.
What?
By a delivery bike.
Let's put that in
In English.
resolution and say, making sure that the apps are picking up the insurance.
And make sure
Because I think that I still can read the language both ways.
okay, ensure that
That the apps are the ones that are picking up the cost and the responsibility to make sure its drivers are covered,
clarify.
are covered by insurance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, picking up costs.
And that they're covered for that if they get in, not just the pedestrian,
No,
but
that's
the operator.
probably the operator, if the operator commits this, it's a crime, right?
Yeah.
So insurance covers, well, up to 25, as Rocio is saying, maybe more. The medical
Depending on,
costs,
you know, the
the
degree.
injury cost,
Yeah,
whatever.
that's degrees.
And the app is responsible. The app is the platform, okay?
Well, we got that word, platform.
Okay, or I'll say some. The restaurant, or whatever. What?
Party apps.
Third party app.
And I give an example.
DoorDash. I don't make profit.
Oh, my God, that's really.
Everybody. And expect.
Or legal. Whatever the case, they're the ones that pay for the insurance, which covers the workers. I don't know, crimes, well, I'll figure it out.
Our operators move the city. They move the city. Not only do they deliver food, but they deliver everything. They are the heart of the city. And you have to
Okay,
be protected.
that was what numbers?
They have to be.
Okay,
6760
okay, so we're on
to 56561.
the which is the penalties, hit and run perpetrated by users of, yeah, okay.
Oh.
That, like, well, we want to increase penalties for those guys.
Yeah, and that the
That's-
rules are the same for this.
Everybody agree with what we just said?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, so
of
that's.
course.
And approved, okay. All right, 561. Increase the penalties for leaving the scene of an accident involving an electric scooter without reporting in the first and second degrees. I thought it was for both a scooter and an e-bike.
I have that. I have it. I have both.
Okay. I wrote first-
Penalties for hit and run for e-bikes, commercial rider and scooters, the same penalty.
And I would,
Penalty in the scene of a crash involving an electric scooter without reporting consistent with the penalties for leaving the scene of an automobile.
On this one,
Penalties.
on this one, I agree with Rocio. I think we can add bikes on this one. Why are you excluding bicycle? Bicycle hits somebody, a pedestrian, they shouldn't be able to leave the scene either if they hurt somebody. I don't know why bikes are not included in this one. That doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, because we're talking
Because
about,
they run away.
it's e-scooter.
They ride away. They ride away.
I don't agree. But this is for e-scooters and e-bikes. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, one step at a time.
Right.
But it's so, if somebody assaults you, right, you shouldn't leave this, I mean. If
They
you,
do.
All right, then say consider possibility. How's that?
Regular,
the
non-motorized.
story we heard today was about a regular cycle that hit somebody and she hit her head.
Regular bikes, okay.
I mean, I don't see that.
Non-motorized.
Non-motorized, right, thank you.
This one is different for me. It's not about registration. It's not about insurance. You can't leave the scene of a crime
Right.
Okay,
or an accident.
So whereas non-motorized bikes are also guilty.
If you leave it, it's a crime. If you stay there, it's an accident.
Also
Whatever, however you want to put it.
guilty.
The same thing, I lost a tooth. The guy came the wrong way, hit me in the tooth
And
on Third Avenue. He
leaving
took off.
scene of crime.
Surely.
Wait a minute,
Oh, we gotta hear from Anthony.
Oh.
We haven't heard from Anthony all day.
responsible not to
He's the
leave.
closer.
Responsible not to.
How cool is
But
that?
you gotta be funny though.
Very cool.
So just pointing out some more details.
Yeah.
That she brought up, the
Yeah.
individual that
God, I wish.
was deceased in Chinatown.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's, yeah, that particular individual
Did you
that
have?
got hit, the only reason they caught the guy is because of cameras that were at the intersection. But the
Really?
only penalty he received was a red, red light.
Like it happened, right?
So he left the scene of the accident.
She reported it to some New York State police
Oh, he did,
officers at
okay.
the corner. This lady, just did some lady and left.
Oh,
They didn't bother taking down his name or anything.
This belongs in the other one, right? With the enforcement.
no, this belongs in penalties for hit and run.
Yeah.
Hit and run.
So they're hitting.
And the only reason they caught him afterwards is because the community members got involved, forced the
Right.
NYPD to look into the cameras. It got shot up,
Okay, I'm getting mixed up
circulated,
now.
But all he got was it running the red light.
red light.
Was it an e-bike or a bike?
It was the e-bike, city bike.
It was a city bike. Was the fast one a white one or a blue one? No, but they make a difference because they go over 20 miles an hour. They go 21 miles an
I
hour.
looked at the article for those.
And I have a big problem with us when we talk about this. They say no e-bikes, but you rent them.
What the resolution should be. Which one does this go into?
Oh, no, I'm just making a,
I know, I think that is.
but the third one, the third one.
They're number 3.
It's disgusting, right?
Yeah, and actually you should mention that it was a city bike.
But that's a bad, isn't it one bad?
Run.
Oh, no, this is just leaving the scene of the crime.
That's correct.
Okay, so actually, that one works, so in one of the, I'll figure it out. Okay, leaving. scene of
City
crime.
because he had a video. I forget what.
So he was on,
A city bike ship.
was.
We're not sure what kind of city bike he was.
Yeah, I don't know.
Does it say? A couple of articles on that, so.
There are 3 different classes.
It's either the village sun or.
Bike it was.
It was city.
Yeah, but there's a city bike non-motorized. There's a- Oh,
But I'm not sure, what.
if it was, there's one that only goes about 12 miles an hour and the other one goes 21.
I don't know if it's a blue or a white.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know if it was motorized?
And they go, so what's your like?
Okay, what are you gonna say? E-bike, city bike, e-bike, right? Okay, so we can use that as an example of leaving the scene, okay, so.
Do you know when the injury happened? So you can give Shirley a date.
I toured her.
Oh, okay.
What? It's CB3.
It happened in CB,
yeah.
but she was an employee at Chinatown Head Start, which is.
Yes.
Right, and there was a lot of press on it,
Yeah,
and then the last thing was about the penalty, so maybe we can say in this. That penalties need to be increased too, but I don't think they say that here.
Well, they do. They say increasing penalties, but he wasn't specific what that
There's no
means.
Scale or anything, nothing.
There wasn't,
Yeah.
it didn't define what the penalties.
Speaking for increasing penalties,
Meaningful penalty.
okay, but the whereas would be, it allows you increasing penalties, but doesn't specify, right? Specify, and then we want meaningful penalties,
Or significant penalty.
I think
significant, whatever. Penalties. Okay, so that's a resolve, okay. All right. All right, are we sending this around anyhow?
Yeah, I'll help.
Yeah, so Lois, you want to choose one in particular? You
I'll
said
do
you-
number 1. I'll
Okay.
work on it. I mean, it's all together, but I'll start with some whereases and.
Okay, yeah, get it to me by Tuesday.
Tuesday, Tuesday.
Yeah, okay. Plenty of time, right? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Last one.
703?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. 7703. Oh, that's the moped. Okay, I don't know, my impression was,
Tuesday, what date on Tuesday? What's the date on Tuesday?
what's today's date?
4 days ago, 5 days ago. Today's Thursday, so 5 days.
16th is a full board. And what's the date?
You said it's the 7th,
Okay,
Yeah,
election day.
oh, election day, right, we don't have to.
there'll be a lot of whereases. You could cut them out as you like, as you go.
Yeah, right.
I'll do
back.
I'll do what I can.
So what was it?
I'll try to do some of
Okay,
it.
fine. Anybody else want to volunteer to do any of?
I promise to read it.
Since I opened up my big
Okay,
mouth and
yeah,
asked,
please do read it.
Brad to come.
Okay, this one is a moped. I mean, obviously mopeds, my impression is mopeds are kind of like slip through the cracks in a way.
What's the difference between a scooter and a moped?
This is a good law for me because it's saying the dealer can't give a moped over unless it's registered. So it's starting someplace again. It's like saying, so these are people that are registered dealers, and if you give an unregistered dealer, you sell one, you can lose your license. That's what Sam said.
I guess what Carter's trying to say, you know, don't make it so cost prohibitive.
Right.
People will have an incentive to, or, you know, drive the moped dealer or something like that. So what he's saying is that you can't. He was saying that it seemed to read that it has to be licensed by the moped dealer. What he said, he was recommending that we say that the moped dealer is not allowed to release the moped to the buyer until they can show that it's.
That's right. And the registration fee should be in line with the cost of the moped, so it's not included. Which just goes back to all of these, the light.
They'll represent.
Somebody. Oh, okay, I didn't see.
But I agree, but that's why a lot of the themes on all of all these bills are the same or common.
Okay, hey, can you send me what you just said?
Sure.
Great, okay, excellent, because that's like maybe all there else there. Okay, you know what, as usual, Lois should get yours for me. I'll get all of you, by the end of next week, I guess. Have a question for me. So let me see, though, you know, I'm sorry for being.
Yeah, so usually we get an email.
Let me tell you.
Well,
May I tell you what happened?
Yes.
Susan, like 2 weeks ago,
It's the meeting.
said, how would I feel about you joining the I was like, fine.
Okay, 1 second.
Before I